Hello, I'm going to talk today a little bit about politics, which I know is a subject that interests a great many young people, and is something which is perhaps more commonly associated with older people. But I would argue that politics and interest in political issues should be of keen interest and of value to everybody in society. I want to just talk just for a few minutes about the broad structure in which politics and the government of the United Kingdom operates. There are five main parties, three big parties in the UK. There is the Conservative Party, which are presently in government and won a majority at the last election in December 2019. They have 365 MPs, which gives them a majority of 80, which is a sizable majority. There's the Labour Party, who are the second largest party in Parliament, and therefore they are the official opposition. And when I say they are the official opposition, they are mandated by the Queen to oppose Her Majesty's government. So it is a formal position, a formal job they have to do. There's the Scottish National Party, who are the third largest party in Parliament. However, they do not sit across the UK. They only sit exclusively in Scotland. And there's the Liberal Democratic Party, or the Liberal Democrats, or the Lib Dems. And then there's also smaller parties, many of whom belong to Wales, also Northern Ireland. There's also the Green Party. So these parties compete in elections, locally and nationally. To form a majority in Parliament, you need to have a majority of at least 326. If you win a majority, you then get to be in government, because government is drawn from Parliament. And so, for example, right now, the leader of the largest party typically becomes the Prime Minister, which is Boris Johnson. He then selects a government, and members of the cabinet lead government departments, which is secretaries of state and ministers, and they then work in the departments of government, such as the Treasury, which looks after the money, Justice, which looks after prisons and many of the laws around crime. That also works in partnership with the Home Office, which looks after the borders, also looks after issues around immigration and how the police operate with security. And then there's also issues like the environment, education, health, defence. There's about 20 odd government departments, and these overall look after the United Kingdom. And the Parliament that we have in the UK, which is of course the four countries of England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, to form the United Kingdom, is Westminster Palace, which is of course that big building you may have seen pictures of in London, next to Big Ben. And so in that huge building on the banks of the Thames, we have a Parliament which is composed of two chambers. One chamber is the House of Commons, the other chamber is the House of Lords. Together, these two chambers form Parliament, and Parliament therefore is the decision-making body of the United Kingdom, and it sets and makes laws. The House of Commons is the supreme body when it comes to deciding law, because it is democratic. It is elected every 4 to 5 years in a general election, and it's composed of 650 members of Parliament or MPs. But in conjunction with that, or joining with House of the Commons, is the House of Lords. And the House of Lords is not democratically elected. It is instead elected or determined by a combination of bodies. So they have quite a mixed background. They don't have to stand for election, but they are selected on effectively a combination of merit and patronage, which patronage is sort of a favourite sort of preference of people. And once you're a Lord, you have a seat for life, effectively, and you get to vote on and to amend legislation. The role of the House of Lords in the modern era is to be a revising chamber, to be a chamber where expertise, experience and knowledge can infuse and can help make legislation better, and to help guide the House of Commons into refining the law, to making it much more sharper or more useful, more constructive, and perhaps just being sort of a source of advice for the House of Commons and for government itself. While the House of Commons is in charge, and it obviously helps to form the government, and the government therefore proposes law, which then goes back to the House of Commons, and it's democratic in its nature, and it's determined, its makeup is formulated by elections. The House of Lords is more of a revising chamber. It's a chamber where expertise and experience and knowledge and wisdom and can help make legislation better, and to help guide the House of Commons into refining the law, to making it much more sharper or more useful. Any legislation, which is law, is initially proposed by government, typically, because the government controls the timetable for the House of Commons, for Parliament, so it determines the scheduling of how law is processed and voted on and selected in the House of Commons. that will then be debated in the House of Lords. It will then go back to the House of Commons again to be further discussed, and then it will go back to the House of Lords, and then finally it's given assent by the Queen, who of course is the sovereign, and that then it becomes law. So there is a process here, and it's the same. It's governed by convention, governed by all kinds of protocol and history, and the UK has one which is known as unwritten, which means that it is not actually codified, it's not actually put into words. It's essentially shaped by history, shaped by convention, which means that it's determined by previous practice, effectively. And once a practice is set, a precedent is set, then it becomes the way in which things are done, and it just it's basically a way of it's tradition. So thank you very much, and thanks for watching.